Welcome back. The third International 48mm Film Festival was held this weekend, featuring films by Jewish, Muslim, and Christian artists about the Palestinian Nakba, or catastrophe. That is the creation of the over 100,000 Palestinian refugees after the founding of the State of Israel in 1948. The festival had both new and original films produced especially for the event, including by director Michael Kaminer, who will be joining us on the phone for this discussion. But the festival was not well received by all. To find out, we're joined by I-24 News senior editor Ruti Sinai. Good morning.
Good morning,
Ruti.
Meredith.
But first, let's take a look at the following report by our reporter Gabrielle Weiniger.
48mm, the International Festival on Nakba and Return. It's an annual film festival now in its third year, and yet it's still a struggle to stage, even in its homeland.
48mm is a film festival that wants to raise awareness among Jewish Israeli public to the ongoing crimes of the Nakba and for the right of return of Palestinian refugees.
But the Tel Aviv Cinematheque is the only theatre in the country that's agreed to screen the films, created especially by Israeli and Palestinian filmmakers. Israel's culture ministry is threatening to cut government funding from the Tel Aviv Cinematheque, saying the films screened during the festival may have violated the law.
Have difficulties in persuading, decision makers in theaters to put on the stages political theater. Our Minister of Culture are trying to scare people from dealing with delicate issues like the 1948 memories.
A different narrative is exactly what some viewers came to hear.
Showed both sides in a painful way.
כל היום ברדיו אנחנו רק שומעים את הלהג והשקרים של המנהיגות. אז פה אתה שומע ורואה דברים אחרים.
Nonetheless, many of the seats were empty, and we were the only press present on the second day of the festival. Actress Raida Adon told me why it was so important.
المهرجان هذا كتير مهم. الكل بحارب إنه ما يكون. بتخيل إنه هذا شوي بخلينا نسمع بعض. أهم شيء إنه نسمع بعض، لأنه إحنا وصلنا لمرحلة إنه إحنا ما بنسمع بعض، ومنخاف نحكي مع بعض، ومنخاف نسمع الوجع تاع بعض. فبتخيل إنه هذا شوي بهدي من الغضب اللي جويتنا.
The past 2 months have witnessed surging violence in the region, and for some artists it is more important now than ever before to continue their work.
Times get darker, I'm more challenged. Everybody feels this pressure. We are scared that audiences will not feel free to come, will not feel that they have the spirit to come and see disputable shows. And yet I feel that this is our duty as artists to work on it. And we try to cross the borders between both sides, the Palestinians and the Jews. This is our task.
So, Ruti, tell us more about this festival and why it's so controversial.
Well, I think let's get back to basics. 1948, Israel is established. For Israel, obviously, and for the Jews, this is a great celebration. Finally, a homeland of their own after thousands of years of persecution. But for the Palestinian Arabs who were living here, this is a disaster because this is land that their forefathers have been living on also. And many of them were either expelled from their homes or just ran away because they were frightened. They didn't know what was in store. And this created the Palestinian refugee issue, which we've been dealing with for the past almost 70 years. So Nakba means disaster, means catastrophe in Arabic, and these films basically conjure up various aspects and memories of this disaster. Now, what the Israeli Culture Ministry is saying, a minister essentially, is saying, we will not fund cultural institutions that show films about that somehow delegitimize Israel. The issue is, of course, and not show films that incite to violence and so on, that goes without saying. But the issue basically is by the very fact that you are conjuring up in other people's pain, is that in some way, is that a reason to A, defund a cultural institution, and B, does that delegitimize your own right to exist? I would argue it doesn't, but that's just me.
Well, also in art, as a general medium, it's kind of, there are no limits. It's
Right.
self-expression, and how do you judge some things? They're saying that films may have violated the law.
Yeah, well, basically, again, the law that was put in place by this culture minister, by Miri Regev, which says that you are not allowed to refer to Israel's independence as a catastrophe. Which, again, I mean, it's if you take it totally literally, then yes, but that is not the point at all. And look, the government has a right not to want to fund a cultural institution if it violates certain laws. That's right. They're not saying you can't put on these films. They're just saying we're not going to fund it. But again, I mean, I think it's totally wrong. And I think the other thing that's really sad about this VTR that we just saw, is that people are afraid to come. People don't feel they have the legitimacy to come and listen to another people's point of view.
Right, and some people said they just were curious to see both sides,
Absolutely.
and they were just curious to see what's going on. And then, as the Arab woman said in the report, it's important to talk.
Totally.
But people are scared to talk, and I would say I do find that to be the case here in Israel.
Absolutely.
But we are joined on the phone now from Beit Shemesh by director Michael Kamener. Good morning, Michael. Thank you for joining us. So tell us about your film and what was the process to produce it for this festival?
Good morning. First, I apologize for my poor English. Thank you for the question. Do you hear me clear?
Yes, of course. Okay. So just tell us about your film. We want to know more about your film.
Okay. I'm 51 today. Until around the age of 40, as a child that grew up in this kibbutz Sorah, next to Beit Shemesh, I never heard about this Palestinian village that we're sitting on his land, and the kibbutz was established first on his ruined, uprooted land. And it was amazed me when I started to find out that there was 400 people over there who lived there, who didn't fight against nobody, and suddenly got uprooted because somebody decided that its village is on the way to somewhere. And actually, I started to investigate and learn more. Why didn't the establisher of the kibbutz didn't told us, the kids, never about the place? Every year, twice a year at least, we were traveling as a kids to the mountain, to the first point where they established the kibbutz, where it was what we called House of the Sheikh, which was the house of the Mukhtar of the village, actually. But we never understood that this is a house of him, of a Palestinian. It was like a house of someone from the legend, like Alibaba, something like this, for me. And it took me a long time to understand first that this was the house of a Palestinian, and eventually to investigate and learn more about the village. That you can see, I guess, photos now of one of the establishers, Ronale, climbing the hill, or maybe it's in a delay here.
Yes, we did see those images. But you know what? We are running out of time. But you know what? Just thank you so much for joining us and telling us about this film that seems to really be inspired by a personal experience of you growing up here. Thank you so much for joining us, Michael.